Queen Elizabeth returned to England yesterday after 6 days in the States. Though she attended the Kentucky Derby and spent a few days in Washington, the main purpose of her visit was to commemorate the 400th anniversary of Jamestown, Virginia, the first permanent English settlement in America, and a slice of history in which weather played a huge role. With about 100 original settlers, Jamestown was founded in May 1607 on a marshy peninsula about 40 miles upriver from Chesapeake Bay. The settlement and the river were named for the reigning English monarch, James I, great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-grandfather of Queen Elizabeth. That's 10 greats, by the way. It seemed like a good location, deep water for navigating, far enough inland to limit contact with ships from other nations, plus there weren't many Native Americans around. Turns out for good reason, including that the natives knew the area lacked a source of quality drinking water. And to start, the Jamestown colonists got their water from the river. Now, the lower part of the James is an estuary where salt water transitions into fresh, so the water is a bit brackish anyway. But to make matters worse, the settlers had the monumental bad luck to arrive during a prolonged drought, so freshwater runoff into the river would have been reduced, making the water even saltier than normal. And this foul drinking water promoted illness and contributed to an appalling mortality rate of 60% in the first year. How do we know about the climate during those early years? Well, the information comes from analyzing the growth rings of centuries-old cypress trees in swamps in southeast Virginia. First, researchers from William and Mary and the University of Arkansas calibrated the last 150 years of growth rings with observed rainfall data. And from that relationship, they reconstructed a drought index for the growing season in the Jamestown area going all the way back to around the year 1200. Now, on this chart, above zero is a relatively wet time, below zero a relatively dry time. And PHDI stands for Palmer Hydrological Drought Index. That's similar to the Palmer Drought Severity Index that we sometimes show you during the Water Watch segment on Weather World. Now, there's certainly lots of variation on scales of years and decades here, but if we zoom into the period starting in the late 1500s, you see a stretch of years from about 1606 to 1612 of exceptionally dry conditions. In fact, the driest 7-year period in the entire 800-year record. And that period coincides exactly with the early years of the Jamestown settlement. Now, this drought certainly wasn't the only factor or even the most important one that contributed to the hardships at Jamestown. The colony wasn't well planned or well supported, and there were battles with the Native Americans. But even the best designed colony would have been supremely challenged by the climate during those early years at Jamestown. Fred will be back with the extended forecast next.